He viewed the concert there on Wednesday night, and said you seem like sort of the classic entertainer, something along the lines of, say, Elvis Presley or Frank Sinatra.
Frank Sinatra, thank you very much. I'm very flattered.
Oh, well, actually, yeah, we wanted to ask you what you thought about, say, those the grand entertainers of the business.
Presley, I've never really been that keen on him or his music. I think he was, as you say, a great entertainer. I just never I'm not much of a rock and roller, as you say. Frank Sinatra, I've seen him live, and I think he's amazing. I think he's brilliant. I think he is fantastic. He's got such a communication with the audience, and that's what I would like to be able to develop. You know, that's the kind of thing he uses, which I'd like to be able to develop. That kind of contact, without being over the top. You know, like sort of some people like Shirley Bassey, those, you know, like that, or even like Freddie Mercury. That kind of style thing. I hate that. I can't stand it. What I like is that very cool, very relaxed kind of being able to communicate with the audience, and the show is very much to do with that. It's to do with sort of opening up and getting through to them, and there's a definite kind of pattern to the show. Do you want to translate that, or do you want to?
Well, actually, we're going to be going over this later. I'm just going to give a short summary of what you say, so you don't have to worry about.
Yeah. So I'll carry on then, because I like to talk about the show. I think it's very important. I haven't had a decent interview since we've been here. Actually.
I can imagine. Yeah.
We've had all teeny but what colour socks do you wear? What do you have for breakfast?
Well, it's our policy to get away from that stuff. We're looking for more of the.
So it's a real nice opening. I mean, the show to us is very important to me. It's like the one chance when there's no techniques involved between us and the people who we're really trying to get through to. I mean, when you make a record, you make it like 3 months before it gets released, and in between the time there's like sales technique, and there's promotion, and also that big amount of time, and it tends to come between you and the audience who you're trying to get through to. So, like with video, which is our other main medium, it's very much more fantasy. It's not totally honest. The live show, there's no room for us anyway, for acting. It's or kind of lying. It's the most honest thing, because you're standing there stripped naked in front of an audience, you know, completely, and it's an amazing feeling. We do try to kind of get hold of the audience. We work and work and work. We try to sort of we throw out little bits of bait, like when you go fishing, and then reel in a little bit. But there's a certain point in the show. It's after a song called Nightboat. We have a song called Friends of Mine, which is a very aggressive song, very punchy, and it literally I'm saying fuck you to everybody in the audience. I really am. But it's not being rude to them. It's part of the show. It's an emotion that I want to communicate. And it works very well, because people tend to get, if people haven't quite sort of opened up and haven't quite sort of related to us, they kind of step back a little bit and kind of open up, and when they do that, then I'm free to kind of reach in and kind of get hold of them by the guts, and from there on we can really pull them up and really make it a good show and a good night. I mean, that's what's important. It's the audience and the performers. It's a thing you can only do together. It's no good like pretending that there isn't an audience out there and making them into a load of voyeurs. So I mean, everything is directed to the audience.
Okay, yeah. So you're an entertainer that puts sort of your heart and soul into the performance.
Oh yeah.
So you mentioned the respect for Frank Sinatra, but not so much for Presley. Where did you pick up the rock and roll then? Most of the stuff.
Rock and roll. I don't know, rock and roll. I don't know what people mean by rock and roll. It's such a broad term.
Yeah,
it's ridiculous. I don't think of 50s rock and roll. I mean, I like things. I mean, I like Bobby Darin, Splish Splash, and things like that. I like quirky. So it is, isn't it? That's proper rock and roll. Yeah. I like the Stones very much. My all-time favourite ever band actually is the Doors.
Is that right?
They're quite definitely rock and roll. I suppose they fit into the rock and roll category. They are my favourite group. Absolutely.
So when was it you started performing this? I take it this is the only type of music you've been doing.
Yeah. Well, no, I was in a punk group before.
You were in
England in about 1977.
Was that your first pro band there?
Well, it wasn't a pro band at all. I think I was at art school at the time. I did. We rehearsed for like 6 months. Played one show and decided to knock it on the head because we were so bad.
話があんまり分かんないところに行かないうちに訳してもらわないと。
he said, yeah, I gotta fill in what's going on here.
Okay, yeah.
まずね、
う
フランク・シナトラとね、隠されるなんて非常に光栄だと。もう最高に何しろ最高に尊敬してるアーティストだからね。まあエルビスの方はそれほど尊敬してないんだけど、何しろ僕はエンターテイナーでね。でなるべく客とね直接のコミュニケーションをしたいわけで、まあステージっていうのはね、もう身も心も捧げて、とにかくそのコミュニケーションをやろうとするわけだ。
じゃああなたにとってのスター感というのは、スターのイメージですけど、それはね、例えば、ジョン・ライドンみたいな、割と壊滅的な自己破滅的なロックスターというよりも、もっとこうエンターテイナー、フランク・シナトラみたいなね、そういう人なのかな。
So, what he wants to know here is like how you perceive a star, the term star. Like he says, there's a person like John Lydon who appears to be very self-destructive, and then again you have maybe.
Well, Lydon's not self-destructive, not really.
You don't think so?
No. Lydon's a shrewd businessman.
You think so?
Definitely, I've met him.
Oh, really?
Shrewd, very shrewd man. Him and Malcolm McLaren, like team making money. Very clever. Sid Vicious, on the other hand, was self-destructive. He was the kind of guy who he fell into the biggest trap, which is laying open for every single entertainer in the whole world, which is that he started to believe in the image that somebody else had created for him. He believed it so much, he got himself into drugs and he got himself a strange girlfriend. I mean, you know what ended, you know how it happened.
Right.
Completely believed. That's what happens when you get fooled by the business and all that.
So, you've taken it upon yourself to sort of look out for you. For this kind of thing.
Very much. I mean, as a group as well, we are a very balanced group. There are 5 of us, and we're all 5 reasonably strong personalities. We're not like the Rolling Stones. I'm not a Mick Jagger. I'm not the leader of the band.
Yeah.
I am one member of the band. I'm the front man. I'm at the front of the spearhead. I couldn't possibly do it without their weight behind me. But I'm always the first one to pierce through.
Speaking of which, so there's a band like the Rolling Stones who, maybe even Keith Richards is still on heroin or something, but
he's not looking too healthy.
He isn't looking too good at all. Well, they led kind of a wild life for years and years, at least all except 2 of them. Then again, you have a band like the Police. No smoking, no liquor, no drugs, no women. On a tour, it's straight business. How do you compare yourself with those 2 bands?
In between. Completely in between the 2.
Completely in between.
Yeah, I mean, we do have a lot in common with the Rolling Stones, as people. I mean, that same kind of slightly cheeky, rebellious English sense of humour, heavy drinking from the guitar player. But the drugs thing is no real problem to us now. It was at one time. I think every band goes through it because you do get it kind of handed to you on a plate at one point. Right. But we kind of look after each other, like I said before. And the little problem that did develop, 4 of us just turn around and went, no way, just get rid of it because it's no good for us.
So you saw what happened to people before you and said,
yeah, I mean, you can see it if you don't kind of take notice of that kind of thing being around, then you're either blind or stupid.
Let me just fill them in here. まずジャンラ、さっき言ったように、彼単なるビジネスマンだ。もうマクレーレンとも売り2つで、とにかく全く変わんないわけだ。それからシッド・ビシャスっていうのはね、あれはなんていうのかな、スターのね罠にかかってしまったっていうんです。つまり自分のイメージをね、自分で信じてしまったわけだ。要するに僕がスターだ。だから僕はドラッグやらなくちゃいけないとか。変な女の子と付き合わなくちゃいけないとか、そういうことをこう考えてしまったわけだ、スターになって、それで、人生を誤ってしまってついに死んじゃったんだけど、で僕らはそれと違うっていうんだよね。
彼は非常に雄弁で助かるね。
何しろね、今までのインタビューひどかったんだって。
あ、本当。
あなたは今日の靴下は何色とかさ、そういうことばっかり聞かれて。
じゃあそれでほらロックの不合理についてどうのこうのって言ったけど、
だから一時はね、まず僕が聞いたのはね、まずローリング・ストーンズっていうグループがあってね、で彼は非常に金持ちになって、 で生活は何しろ晴れなんだよね、キーズ・リチャードなんてねもう昔からヘロインやったりでミック・ジャーガーってまた派手でさ、でまた一方ではねポリスみたいなビジネスマンっていうのがいて、で彼らはもうとにかく酒やらないし女やらないし、タバコさえやらないグループなんだよね。で彼らその2つのグループと比べてデュラン・デュランっていうのはどういうやり方をしてるのかな。
鋭い質問だそれは。
でそれに対して彼らが、その真ん中じゃないかな。つまり
真ん中ね、
ローリング・ストーンズみたいにかなり生活は、晴れは晴れなんだけど、ドラッグまではいかない、一時そういう問題があったんだけど、なんか一日ね目が覚めてこいつはやばいと思ってね、もうこれから一切ドラッグなしっていうふうに決心して、であれからやってないと。でもまだこう酒やったり。
So it's got a lot to do with kind of moderation really, because we're the kind of people who do want to enjoy ourselves, who do want to go, we do want to be able to drink and have women, and maybe on some birthdays the occasional sniff of something. You know, it's all it's the kind of thing which we mustn't let it become more important than the job you're doing. You mustn't let it, and you mustn't use it as a prop. I mean, there's so many things that people are offering which they say, oh, it'll make it easy for you, you know, you'll go on stage, you'll feel great, you won't get nervous. But it's no good doing it on somebody else's confidence or something like that. You have to find the strength within yourself. I mean, that's what makes it good. That's what makes you feel kind of satisfied when you really do it as yourself, and you're honest about it, you know.
Well, a lot of people say that they use inspiration as an excuse to take drugs. In other words, they say when I'm drinking or when I'm taking something, I create better music and stuff.
I think that's crap. I think that's absolute rubbish. I mean, it's a fact that if you know, that coke makes you overconfident and makes it sound great to you when it's probably a load of rubbish. The same with smoke. It's a fallacy. It's something which is purely there for enjoyment. It's for us in very small amounts. I really think that people have got it in themselves to be able to do it. I mean, you don't have to smoke half an ounce of ganja to make good reggae music. You just have to be calm inside. You have to be a laid-back kind of person. If you have to do lots of drugs to do it, then I personally think you have no right to be. To stand up and put yourself up as as being good at it.
まあいいやそれは。あなたの水曜日のステージでの振る舞いを見て思ったんですが、デュラン・デュランに入る前に演劇をやっていたっていうのを聞いたんですけれども、そういうことがやっぱりそのステージの振る舞いにも反映されているのかな。
He's under the understanding that before you joined the group, you were involved in drama, or at least had been studying it. Had you ever been making a living as an actor?
Yeah, I did at one time. I was doing. I've been involved actually since about 5 years old. Real little kid. I was one of the what's known in England as an advert kid. Sort of did Persil adverts and sort of toothpaste adverts.
Oh, I see.
And that kind of thing. Because my mother was sort of the kind of pushy mother. I had piano lessons for 2 years, and I still couldn't read music at the end of it. And I was singing the school choir. I went to dancing lessons and things like that. But I did get very involved in drama, and I've got an equity card. I can act professionally, and I sort of. I'm 23. I've done quite a lot since I left school. I went when I first left, I went to art school, and then I was got bored with that because it was a very insular kind of setup. Art students, sort of art for art's sake, nothing to do with the outside world, no communication. So I finished with that, and I worked in a hospital then. And while I was doing that, I was like doing more sort of studying in the evenings at night school, and then I went off to Israel, and for 3 months had a great time.
What were you doing in Israel?
I was working in the kibbutz, driving tractors, cutting down trees, living in the desert basically, getting brown and healthy.
Is that right? What inspired you to go to Israel?
Well, I had like 300 quid, and you can't go very far on 300 quid for a holiday.
You just wanted to go somewhere?
Yeah, I wanted to get on for a long time as well. I originally planned to go for 5 weeks, but I ended up staying for 10. And I had a fantastic time. It was the first time I'd really left home. I really went away, and since then I've kind of sort of been quite independent. I came back from that, and I found out I'd passed my A-levels, so I could go to university to do drama. That was very important, a very important time for me. I learned a hell of a lot doing that, especially kind of improvisation techniques. Before that, I'd always worked from scripts, from other people's words. I'd been writing songs and things before then, a few songs which we use now sometimes, but I never really kind of felt comfortable without a script. I never really thought that I had it in my head to go on stage and to give a show. But I did a year of drama. It was a 3-year course. I dropped out after 1 year because that's when I met the band. I had a great time. I learned a hell of a lot. I learned how to react and how to let things happen at their own speed, not to push things. And I think it shows up a lot on stage actually. I wouldn't call myself a method actor. I don't know. I'm not really an actor on stage. It's very much something that is really true to me. Really honestly going on in my head at the time. Funny thing was how I joined the band. Actually, I was getting a bit kind of depressed with the fact that like I was surrounded by students at university in Birmingham doing drama, and they were all like 2 or 3 years younger than me, and I thought, when I went there at first I thought, oh, university, great, they'll be going out and they'll be going to clubs and they'll be having fun, but no, they were really boring. All they wanted to do was get drunk every night and work the next day and worry about their exams. And I was getting a little bit pissed off with it. It was just around the time we were sort of preparing for the Edinburgh Festival actually. And I had a phone call from an ex-girlfriend. She said she was working in a club, and she knew that I'd been in a band before in London. And she said, well, I've met these guys, and they're looking for a singer. Why don't you go along there? And I thought, do me a favour, I can do without that. I'm having enough problems here. But I got really drunk at this party, and I had the phone number in my pocket, and I found it. I thought, I'll give them a ring. So I did. I gave them a ring, and I went along the next day, met them all, and suddenly thought, wow, shock horror, it's amazing, fantastic. These guys for the first time I've met people who were wearing the same kind of clothes as I was wearing since I was a punk rocker, because things change,
This the band you're talking about is the first punk band you were?
No, this is pure band. This is Duran Duran, yeah. And they seemed like they were really switched on to the kind of music that I like, which was like Bowie and Roxy Music and Talking Heads, that kind of thing. Not still listening to the old punk stuff, and not going back into the disco thing. And there's the jazz funk as well that was played at the club. It was great. And I went along the next day, and I'd written some words the night before because I felt really good about it. And they played this kind of backing track tune that they had worked out without any words or melody. And I sort of rewrote a couple of words, and like within half an hour we had our first song, which is on the first album. It's called The Sound of Thunder. And that was, and from then on we just work like that. We really do work as a good unit.
Get it right off.
Yeah, and I'll talk about the writing later on maybe.
That gets into one of the questions he was going to ask you.
Right, yeah.
やっぱりその辺から影響を受けてる。前の演技の訓練をもうずっとガキの頃からやってるから。とにかく自分の今までの
I've given you my whole life story here.
今まで彼をやったことをとにかく今すべて喋ってくれた。それは後で詳しく訳すけど。
あとロキシーとかについて言ったの？
そうだから今これから聞こうと思ってる。バンドの練習と初めて会った時、とにかくすぐに気が合ってね。で彼らも僕と同じ音楽が好きだって言うんだよね。つまりロクシーミュージックとかデイビッド・ボーイとかトークインヘッズとか、で当時のパンクはとにかくもう飽きちゃって。
なるほど。その前にちょっと一つ聞きたい。さっきローリング・ストーンズとそれからポリスの中間だみたいなことを言ってたんだけれども、ビジネスかロックかっていうことでね。じゃあ今度スターについて聞きたいんだけど、例えばアダム・アントはね、ロックをショービジネスとして割り切ってやってるけれども、あれと、もっと真剣なメッセージを持った人とではどこら辺に位置するのかな。
もっと真剣なメッセージって例えばそのアダム？いや、アダムはショービジネスとして割り切ってるわけでしょ。そうだね、クラスとか。なるほどね。
Some music has a particular meaning.
Next question. This goes back a second. We're talking there about business, show business.
Yeah.
Okay, we talked about the Police and the Rolling Stones. Now, there's Adam Matt, right?
Mm.
Now this he's another guy who's like 100% show business. He's like, you know, a vaudevillian. The way
Well, I think he's pantomime actually. I would call him pantomime.
Okay, but I'm just his attitude.
Yeah.
It shows, you know, go out there and do your best. Yeah. Okay, what about then a group like the Clash, like revolutionaries on stage and are shooting for more political message? What do you think about those two schools?
I think lately the Clash have got just a little bit boring, a little bit repetitive. As far as politics and stage goes, I mean, we're not, as a band, we're not interested in it. We're more interested in personal politics, not party politics. I mean, it's a question of one interest. I mean, personally, I think, you know, politics is a very boring subject because it's to do with the institution, and I don't like institutions. I don't want anything to do with them. I don't vote, and I don't like institutions. Simple as that. On the other hand, not on the other hand, but and secondly, I think in a way they may be overstepping their mark. They may be a little bit too big for their boots, standing up in a soapbox and preaching to people, especially to kids. And about subjects of which they really know very little. They only know a brief kind of smattering of what they're going on about. I think it could possibly be a little bit dangerous. On the other hand, there's a band like UB40 who have got very strong political messages, social political messages, but these are based on experience and real life. I mean, the Clash is a bunch of art students who just look a bit kind of weather beaten. UB40 they know they've been at rock bottom. They really have, you know, and they can create this most beautiful music to carry their message across to people. I mean, things like The Earth Lies Screaming. It's one of the most hard-hitting sort of emotional songs I've ever heard. The social message in that is incredible. You know, please just don't kill us off. But then the music itself is also so beautiful it can't possibly be boring. That's for me is the main criteria. It's got to be entertaining.
I don't want to harp on the Clash too much, but you said they've gotten a bit boring lately. Did you respect them before then?
Oh yes, I mean I've still got a great deal of respect for the Clash now. I mean, as far as I'm concerned, they're the one and only punk group. No, two, Susie and the Banshees. The Clash and Susie are the only punk bands to have shown that they have a little bit more substance than pure, you know, sick and rebellion.
Yeah, right.
You know what I mean?
Right.
Well, that's why everybody grew out of punk, really, because it got so negative and it turned into a fashion. You know, everybody was walking around wearing the same leather jacket, the same colour hair, the same Dr. Martens and the same safety pins, and the same negative attitude to life, sitting on street corners feeling bored.
You were into it yourself there for a while, though.
I was. Yeah, I was
when
it started, when it really started, when there was 200 of us in England, you know.
And you got out of that right away?
I got out of it when everybody else started doing it, because it was a thing which was basically about individualism, and about not giving a damn about fashion. I mean, for safety pins were not fashionable.
Right.
The concept of wearing something, putting on whatever you liked was fashionable, but it was. But there was no main fashion. People were walking around with, you know, ridiculous songs. It made me laugh. It was so funny. That's the other thing. It was really funny seeing girls walking around dead fish hanging off their ears. I mean, it smelled a bit, but it was funny. It was a lot of fun. It was a very positive kind of attitude to life. It was, okay, we haven't got money, but we've got energy, we're young, we can go out and enjoy ourselves.
So do you think it was more fashion, did it grow from fashion and then go to music, or did it go from music to fashion?
The music was a youth movement to begin with. Then the fashion and the music kind of developed together. You know, they really did, and the music was great. I mean, the Sex Pistols and the Clash and the Damned were really good groups. Excellent. Banshees, they were really good to see live. There was so much energy there. Such a change from that boring old soft rock that, you know, we were getting from the States at that time, and just plain old John Travolta disco music. That's all that we had in the charts. Suddenly this like an explosion, like a TV going, you know. It shattered, the whole thing shattered, the bubble burst, and it happened. But it wasn't a stage which music went through.
Right.
It was more like a stop. It was more like you come up against a brick wall and you have to smash it down, and that's what it took. And as soon as the brick wall had gone, there was no point in being a punk rocker anymore because there's nothing to bang your head against the wall. There's no wall to break down. You've done it, and as soon as that happened, most people changed. Most people, changed in something, sort of changed their attitudes and their passions and everything.
Well, it's interesting because you say like you were very fed up with that sort of American brand of soft adult rock. That then you turn to punk. Then all of a sudden, punk becomes this popular thing, and then you get fed up with that, and everybody kind of turned in sort of a glam rock kind of direction.
There was this yeah, I was going to come around to that. This kind of new romantic thing.
Yeah, right. Well, kind of.
Which is something which I never felt a great affinity with myself, and neither did the rest of the band. We did kind of get. I think we got shoved into that category. Mainly by the record company who wanted a selling point.
Yeah, right.
And they thought it was fashionable and it's new. They thought, bands then weren't lasting for very long at all. We've survived in the business for over a year now, which is quite something in English music. It's quite an achievement to survive for a year. Right. When you get bands like the Flying Lizards who have one hit which gets to number one and then are never heard of again.
Right.
Never. It's happened to a lot of bands. It's happening now. It's happening to like Soft Cellar going down. They've had their moment of glory, and that's it. You really do have to have a little bit more kind of. You have to have something to convince people with. You have to have a little bit more than just a fad or a fashion. And the glam thing wasn't enough for us. It was good fun for a while, dressing up in frilly shirts and pretending you're Prince Charming. Great, what a laugh! But look at us now. We're just like everybody else is.
アダマントについての感想を聞かせて。ニュースリーゼンのデュラン・デュランというのは実験音楽っぽいアバンギャルドミュージックをやっていたっていうふうに聞いたんですけれども、それが現在のねポップでダンサブルなファンキーナンバーになったファンキーミュージックになったのは、あなたが入ったことによるのか、それともバンドのコンセプトを根本的に変えたっていうことなのかな。
It may be an unfair question, but before you entered, this is his opinion, of course. Before you entered the group, he seems to think the music was a bit more experimental, perhaps, and maybe a bit more on the funky side. And now that you've entered the group, it's become more of, say, a danceable kind of thing. I don't know, funky and danceable may be somewhat the same thing, but he differentiates the two.
Music, what? Duran Duran's music?
Yeah.
Have you heard Duran Duran's music before I joined?
Yeah, that's what he's talking about. He says maybe more experimental before.
What have you heard before?
僕は聞いてないんだけれども、そのような情報が入ってるんだよね。3人だった頃ね。ベースが2人。
He heard this information from another person. He said when there were two bassists and there was only 3 people.
Oh yes, definitely, yeah. Yeah, that's right. It was, but it was experimental, but also dead boring. Do you want to translate that now?
確かに実験的だったんだけど、もうとにかくもうつまらないわけだ。
Indulgent. Indulgent, self-indulgent. It was I think everybody was experimenting at that time with different things. I mean, like electronic music for a start. People had a lot of experimentation with that, but it tended to get very boring.
Right.
When I came along, I'll kind of answer the proper question. I'll answer the question this time. When I came along, the band was already thinking, well, look, they'd been together for about 2 years, really. From first conception, and they were having no success whatsoever, and they decided, well, instead of being like an experimental group that nobody's even heard of, they wanted to try and make some money from it and get a bit of success, get it and do it, as a profession, not as a hobby, right. And so they decided, well, we don't want to be a sort of a credible experimental group. We want to be a pop group. And that's exactly why I fitted in, because I kind of completed the 5 in that way. When I joined, it gave us a very strong kind of foundation of musical influences on which to build. And the dance thing was something which was like happening anyway. It was something which the band were going to head for, and I wanted to get into it because I think mainly for the live show. It's very important to me that the audience dance. It's the first way you can involve people in your music. It's the easiest way to get them going,
right?
And to kind of get them to warm and to understand what you're doing. which is basic entertainment. So that's what happened then, and now this is our second LP which we just made, and there is a definite kind of leaning towards a little more experimental things on certain tracks.
Like what would you refer to as experimental?
On this?
Specifically, yes.
Specifically, a song on this called The Chauffeur. Have you heard this, by the way?
もう聞いた。
You have?
ショーファーっていう曲覚えてる。
The very last track.
実験的といえば、多分あれは実験的じゃないか
play
と。
it, she play it. Yeah, stick it on. Stick it on. It's also quite jazzy as well. I mean, do you want to talk about our second LP?
それについて話したいから。
ああ、
話をしたいから。いや、そのレコード、新譜について話をしたいから。
あともうちょっとやりましょう。今はちょっと別の話。
I mean, we'll sort of,
Yeah.
when we get round to it,
Yeah,
because
great.
I've got lots to say about it.
Oh, absolutely.
Loads. I mean, I'll take a whole magazine, you know.
Well, we're
Duran, Simon, blah 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 blah. Loads of it, loads. I can talk for days.
とにかく今まで医療科のインタビューやってなくてね、今日はもうとにかく一冊分を全部喋ってやるよっつって。
それじゃあね、次行こうか。あ、そうそう。彼が入ってから変わったってことは言ってない。
だから今話の途中。ちょっとだからそういえばショーファーっていう曲があるんだけど、それで話がちょっと。
あ、そうなの。でじゃあ彼がショーファーっていう曲を。
はだから前はダンスブルでね。で新婦ではね、ショーファーっていう曲があってで実験的で言えばあれは実験的じゃないかな。そういう方向にある程度戻ったんじゃないかと。
Hey, what you got there, Shin?
新譜では B の1曲目がよかったね。言ってて。
Got any more? Got some more?
Yes, we will be asking a few more questions on the new album, but to get back to this direction, you said you hit it right off with the members of the group.
Yeah.
And they kind of were into the same sort of stuff you were, same sort of music. Is this everybody? I mean, who account for the basic direction, the musical direction?
The musical direction
is
the complete conglomeration of our own influences and personal attitudes and experiments that we all make. Very much with the first LP, I think it was it was songs that were written over a period of 3 or 4 years, and it included some very, very dodgy tracks which were very dodgily close to other people's music. I mean, if you listen to, especially to friends of mine, I'm not going to mention David Bowie or Fashion. Oh, she's ripped off.
Cat's out of the bag.
But things like that. I mean, there's very, very blatant influences. I mean, there's nothing wrong with it. I mean, I don't think we rip people off.
Yeah.
I think, and it was very much just that kind of that broad kind of thing. It was going off in all different directions. I mean, compared to this album, it's not very strong at all. It's got a lot of weaknesses. But it's a band's first LP. And we've been together we hadn't been together for 6 months when we made that. We've only been together as a band, full, 5 of us, a proper band. We've only been a proper band for 1 year and 3/4. So we've still got a long way to go, a lot more to find out about each other. But we do learn very fast.
Okay. In Britain, I read some of the publications, and they seem to feel that Duran Duran is like a bunch of guys got together to sell some records, and then sort of just made a product, slapped a label on it, and go out and make the bucks. How would you counter this criticism?
Just counter it with sticking my fingers up their nose. I just don't give a shit about the music papers in England. I really don't. I think I don't even read them.
Why did you yourself become a musician?
Me?
Yeah.
Because I couldn't act.
Stop the machine.
I like music. I've always sang in the bath, and I was in a school choir, like I said, and played the guitar since about 13. Wrote songs. I love it. It's a nice way of saying something. I'm not quite good enough with words to be a poet. That demands something very special and some special kind of intellectual dedication as well as an emotional dedication, which I don't quite possess. I mean, it's something which is to be developed. But for me, the medium of a song is perfect. It's free enough for me to kind of write words how I talk, but also kind of snappy enough for it to really have a lot of punch to it, a lot of power to it. I mean, a song is a very powerful thing. You know, it's like you can say something in a song which somebody else takes a whole novel to write. You know? I like it. I feel very comfortable.
Do you see yourself a musician for a long period of time, extended period of time?
I see myself as a performer. I don't know about this musician thing because I'm not very good at anything. I'm not particularly good on instruments. I've only just learned to sing as well. You know, I couldn't sing very well.
Then why did the guys in the band scoop you up then if you couldn't sing?
Because they had faith in me.
Could you wait more here? You have to wait more 1 minute.
Right. Because they had faith in me. They saw like possibility. I mean, they were at the same stage as I was. John wasn't a particularly good bass player at that time. Nick, was playing the synthesizer with one finger. With one finger was playing the notes. Twiddles another knob. I mean, he still plays with 2 fingers now. But uses, you know, he's not a keyboard player. He's a synthesizer player. He uses the knobs more than he uses the finger. Right. I mean, as far as he's concerned, he could have one key pressed down all the time and just twiddle. In fact, it might be better for him because he could just. I mean, he does that. He puts it on repeat, on sustain, sticks it down. One note comes out and then he twiddles. And that's how he plays it. That's how he plays his instrument. Roger's always been a great drummer. Roger is a fantastic drummer. I mean, I've never ever actually met a drummer as good as him. Never ever heard one as good as him. He's so damn good. I don't know, Steve Jansen is a really good drummer as well. They've got a lot in common as well. Except Roger pulls faces when he plays.
まあいろんなこと
なんかいろいろピザも
本当にもう次行こう。
次行く？何言ったんだっけ？
あれだ。グラムロックとの出会いとか、グラムロック体験について。
あ、聞いたのも。グラムロック体験については。まだ聞いてないんですよ。
もうちょいじゃあ詳しくその辺。
だからロキシーとかね、デビッド・ボーイとか T-Rex が流行った時に、あなたはどのようにそれに接して、どのような感想を持ってそれを消化していったのかと。
This is trying to search the roots of the bands more. Well, actually, your contributions. What have you been influenced by mainly on that? I mean, this is going to overlap with what we talked about so far, but just sort of set the record straight. What has influenced you?
Me?
Yeah, so far coming up the ladder.
Everything, I mean, virtually everything I've ever done. You know.
No, but I mean, only music.
My teeth at that.
I mean, only music.
Only music. The main influence on my music is alcohol. Ha!
Oh my god.
No. Under the influence. No.
Well, like we were talking about glam rock there for a while. Heads, Bowie.
Yes. Glam rock, not so much. I mean,
not
T-Rex.
So much.
T-Rex, yes.
Okay, but you were.
Very good to know.
No.
Bowie, very, very strongly. Roxy music, a little bit. I don't know. There's all sorts of kinds of influence. I mean, The Doors.
Yeah, right. Oh yeah, you're talking about.
And especially lyrically. Especially The Doors and
right.
Patti Smith.
Right.
On the words are the biggest influences. Patti Smith, I mean, I'm absolutely crazy about the words she writes. And Joni Mitchell as well. Musically, it's mostly Bowie and Talking Heads and Eno a little bit, I think. It's hard to talk about the rest of the band. It's a very personal thing.
Yeah, right.
And I like Frank Sinatra as well. I love the way he sings. So I mean, on the way, you know, this one's a little bit Frank Sinatra, I suppose. It really is.
But I mean, you must have been just a little kid when The Doors came out.
Yeah, but I mean, it doesn't mean I can't buy the records now.
Oh, I see. When you grew older,
I've never seen them. I've seen lots of videos of them and things.
Yeah.
But I just think they're an incredible group.
Do you still listen to their records now?
Yeah, I've got tapes. I've got 3 Doors tapes with me in Japan at the moment. I've got Strange Days, the first one, The Doors, and what else have I got? I've got LA Woman, I think. I didn't do that right. Track.
Yeah, by all means. Sure. ということで、次行こう。
次行く。じゃあグラムロックの話はそれぐらいにして、昔さっきほら昔パンクをやっていたというふうに聞いたので、 びっくりしたんですが、それから今のようなスタイルになるまでには何らかの挫折なり、どのような経緯があったのかということを教えていただきたいです。
それ
言ったんだ。
さっき言った。
言ったの？なんだって？
とにかくもう最初は200人ぐらいしかやってなかった、パンクっていうのは。でそれがファッションとね、音楽は同時に生まれてきて、ね、それまあなんていうのかな、ユースムーブメントっていうか若者の運動だったわけ。でそのムーブメントの中からこう音楽とファッションが出て生まれてきて、で同時にね発展していったわけ。でそれが大衆化されるとともに彼がねそれから抜けちゃって。もうポピュラーなものになってね、で飽きてしまって、でまた違う方向に行ってしまった。だ
けどさ、パンクっていうのは割と現実直視型のね、メッセージだったじゃん。それをパッてやめちゃう時にはなんか抵抗がなかったのかな。
いやつまり腐ってしまった。
パンクが腐ったからやめたってこと。
だから当時クラッシュとかね、ダムとか、スージー・アン・ザ・バンシーズはもう最高だった。その後ダメ。
意味がなくなったんでしょ。意味がなくなったってことでしょ。
そういう、それもあるし。
そうなくて彼自身のうちでさ、それをやめたっていうのが、要するにシーンに興味がなくなったってこと。
We're gonna want to clarify one point here, and that's to how did you get from punk to the music you're doing now in 2 paragraphs or less?
On a very fast train.
Very fast train. Well, there.
You want more than that, do you?
Well, it's like we were talking about before.
Yeah,
it was the balloon bus kind of for punk, right?
Things that were good about punk: basic honesty, singing about reality.
Right. That's what he was just noting here.
I mean, that's very much part of our music now.
Right.
It is. We don't live in a rose-coloured world at all.
Right.
We live in a real world.
Right.
A very positive world,
right,
which is slightly different from punk.
Right.
The dance thing as well was the other big thing. I mean, that's the biggest thing for me. Suddenly, I had to write songs which were, write rhythmic words and things like rappy kind of stuff. Like on the album, it's so obvious. Things like New Religion, which is like a very fast but tuneful kind of rap. The other kind of the sophistication more came from like John and Nick, much more, and Andy, because they are the actual good musicians in the band. Nick won from the Rose. Let's hear the track. This experimental, I think it's quite interesting.
Is this the show for you?
Yeah, this is the one.
Reminds me of David Sylvian's a tad. Yeah. Have you been listening to Japan at all?
I'm a big fan of Japan.
Is that right?
Yeah, excellent group. Oh, funny you should say that.
Actually, I think they're over here right now. I think they're here right now.
Well, I know Sylvian's here at the moment.
Yeah.
I think he's... And so is Bowie. Bowie's in Kyoto.
Is that right? He's going to make a movie with the Japanese director. Next question. じゃあ念のためその質問を
質問入れるか
もう一遍言って。
デュラン・デュランの曲からはね、僕が感じるに非常に虚無的なあるいは漠然とした失望感が漂っているように思うんですが、曲だけ聴いた印象からもそれから詩を読んでも自分たちではそういう風な感じはないかな。
Listening to your music and
どう思いますか？
Listening to your music and reading your lyrics, he senses a sort of nihilism, or even
got it wrong.
You got it wrong?
Got it the wrong way around.
Or even it's the opposite.
Yeah.
What would you define it as?
It's not a nihilism at all. It's a kind of. It's the first LP you're talking about here, right? It's very. A lot of the things are written on it for me. Whatever was a very low period when I was waiting for something to happen. That maybe is what he's picked up on, because there's something like Waiting for the Night Boat, Waiting for the Sound of Thunder, and then there's a song called Friends of Mine, which is I'm Not Waiting Anymore. That's when I joined the band. That's when I'd actually got into it and I thought, this is great. I'm not waiting anymore. I'm ready to go now. That was what it's all about. I think you have to. A lot of the songs are kind of like rock bottom before going up again. You know, you do have to, but you have to find the base before you can start climbing the ladder. It's it was there was a definite theme of waiting in that album. I mean, this one is completely different. It's so much more positive. It's about taking chances, about luck. There's or maybe you picked up on. I mean, The Sound of Thunder is a song about the end of the world. It's about somebody. It's about the guy who pressed the button, and suddenly he pressed the button, and it all starts happening around him, and he just runs out and thinks, "My God, I did that." You know? And also, in Friends of Mine, there's a line, you know, why don't they drop the bomb? Which a lot of people have misconstrued. A lot of people have thought that I want it to happen, you know, with some kind of sadistic or malign kind of attitude to life. But it's like a, you know, for God's sake, what are you doing? You know, why don't you drop the bomb? It's a question. It's not an order.
But still, that sort of reflects a kind of perhaps a disappointment with life.
Yes, definitely. There's a disappointment. But I thought this nihilism thing for me. I thought it was a kind of destroy thing.
Yeah,
which
right.
I'm not into.
Right.
Yes, but yeah, definitely. But it was a kind of a low period. It was a very low thing going on at the time.
What about now?
Now it's wow. It's like we're off on a big space voyage. We're going around the world. We're adventuring. We're exploring. It's completely different, you know.
So the music is more up.
Much more.
But like the last song we heard was, the sound was kind of moody though.
Yeah.
Yeah. The thing is that well,
but it's very much. I mean, there's a story to that song. I mean, I'll talk about the show for a few minutes. It's a story about a guy who's got this kind of incredibly good-looking woman sitting next to him in the car, and he's a chauffeur. And he kind of, over the period of the song, he falls in love with her. He falls out of love with her because he realises she's just a dummy. You know, that's what it's about. And it is very positive at the end. It's like, you know, you can go off and you can carry on that way. I'm just gonna stay here. I'm gonna let you leave me further behind. I don't care. I'm gonna find something better. But it is quite moody. But I mean, I think we would be quite a boring band if we only sang about happy things all the time.
Right.
You know what I mean?
Well, it's strange because the way the Japanese people perceive moody and the way we perceive moody is different altogether. So yeah, so maybe that accounts for some sort of gap.
Explain that to me, could you? I'd like to understand that.
説明してくれって。
いやだから
全然違うんだってね。
いやだからね。
虚無感じゃないって言うんだろ。
虚無感とかさ、暗さとか、日本人の見方とね、我々西洋人の見方は全く違うところに行ったらね、彼がそれをちょっとその辺を説明してくれないかって。
説明してくれって。
だからその
Can you wind it back?
日本人がね考える暗さと、我々の暗さってなんか全く違うんだよね、とにかく。
なるほどね。
説明しろって言われてもね。The Japanese, from what they appear differently, but actually at heart they're very dark and very moody. Japanese people.
Yeah.
And they look for this in music, and so they read that sort of meaning into music. We don't even see that at all, but they listen to music and say, "That's dark, that's moody." You know, I can associate with that. I can identify with this.
I've noticed that a lot actually.
So
a lot of the people here, it's it's very different. It's not a negative thing really. It's more like a kind of calm, isn't it?
Right, exactly.
But an acceptance of karma.
Right.
Acceptance of reality and what happens for what it is, whether it's good or whether it's bad. You know, I don't think dark is the right word to use.
Yeah, I think you may have hit the nail right on the head right there. That's good. The calm, or the sense of just kind of sitting back.
I feel that a lot as well actually. I mean, especially over the last year. As people, as a band, we have, and as individuals mainly, we have developed an incredible balance in our lives. And we can rush all over the world. We can spend no more than 2 weeks in each country we go to, and still keep very calm and not grow old quickly. Just feel, you know, you have to be like a pyramid, just sort of strong at the base, but sharp enough at the top to cut through when he needs. You know what I mean?
Maybe I should go on to the next thing.
いいの次。まあさっきちょっとスティーブ聞いたかもしれないけれども、デュラン・デュランの曲にはね、 曲を聴くとストーリー性というかさ、物語というか、非常に視覚的な一つのシーンが目の前に開けるようなそういう感じなんだけれども、心に残っている絵画なり映画なりあったら教えてください。
He noticed like a strong visual aspect in your work. Like say in the last song you were talking about, a story unfolding.
Yeah.
Have there been a lot of movies or not necessarily even cinema, but things that have like stuck in your mind? These sort of like what, for example?
Like with movies, Apocalypse Now. Also some Zeffirellis films, especially Romeo and Juliet, simply visually. I've seen a lot of Shakespeare plays, having been a drama student. I've been interested. I've watched a lot of plays. I've seen a lot of this kind of thing, and it's Shakespeare staging. I've seen some amazingly staged things. I've seen some no plays as well in England, which I think are very interesting.
Is that right?
Yeah. Some touring companies, no players, and I found very interesting.
So when you're writing a song, how does it go? It's like there's some guys who have the whole thing in their mind, and what they try to do with the lyrics is depict this scene. Whereas there's a guy like David Sylvian who says that he just sits down and he writes, and then halfway through the song he realizes what he's writing about, and then he goes on from there.
I think that's right. That's how I do.
That's how you.
I tend to write a lot of rubbish before I actually get to. You see, what I like to do with a song, writing lyrics, is to find the chorus, is to find the hook, to find the essential,
right,
the most integral part first.
Right.
So I maybe write like 6 pages of just ideas, just words that I associate, trying to find what it is that I am thinking about.
Right.
Because I know there's something there. Because when I'm writing a song, I know that there's something there. And it's just finding the key phrase, and from that, ideas that's the starting point, and from there, ideas radiate. And that's where the pictures and the images come from. I don't sort of write a song from beginning to end and then find it halfway. Really, I kind of I'll start there and write, and I get to there, and then all that it may be rubbish. Maybe I'll pick things out of it that I think are interesting, but that's the real starting point. It's finding the essence of it, the idea, which should be the chorus, because that's the repeated part. That's the bit which is important, it's the bit which people are meant to listen to more than anything else.
Right.
It's like the title of the song. I like to know the title of the song before I've written it, because then I know what it's about. I really do.
Okay. まあずっと子供の頃から
あげてね。
じゃあ地獄黙示録とか。
黙示録ね。
あとは。
I'd like to talk a little bit more about the visuals, actually.
Yeah, well, by all means. He wanted to maybe if you could list more like movies, perhaps.
Yeah, I will.
Like,
carry on. Do you want to explain what else I said?
No, he was just wanting to hear examples.
Apocalypse Now, very much for its darkness and for its beauty, but also for the bizarre aspect.
Yeah.
I mean, that's what that film particularly shows war, which is an incredible horror, a real horror, in a very realistic way, without glamorizing it, but from a very beautiful photographic angle, which gives it, which kind of knocks you off balance, and it gives you this very bizarre aspect, because you're watching something which, as a visual, is beautiful, but as action and as emotion and as what's going on, it's horror, and the two inside your head kind of do that, and they really do kind of give off a lot of vibration inside you.
That's a sharp way of looking at the film there.
じゃあ、あと2つぐらい聞こうかな。
Well, he's gonna get to more question there. I think, yeah, okay.
少年時代のあなたはどういう人間だったかっていうのを自分で言ってください。
I'm still a young man.
Of course you're a young man now, but what kind of a boy were you?
Ordinary, middle class, went to school, broke windows, played truants.
Mischievous.
Had girls behind the bicycle sheds. Not particularly mischievous, no, not compared to some of the kids, not really. I was quite well behaved, really. Very, very ordinary. Not the kind of person you would remember at all. You know, I did a lot. I've always done a lot. I've always been quite active. If I was staying at home or I was doing something, I was going to draw. I was one of these kids who used to sleep like 2 hours a night. I think they're called hyperactive or something, which used to give my parents great headaches. But I wasn't particularly sporty. Never was very interested in sports. I only got interested in sports when I was like a teenager, and they were kind of not team sports. In fact, being in a band is the only team sport I've ever been good at. I used to do like fencing and caving and sailing. Not football, not rugby, and not tennis. Just very ordinary, very normal. Millions of others just like me.
You never really stood out until art school or that era.
No, I started to do things like when I was about 14, 15. I started to get like more involved with drama, like acting professionally and doing things like that. But it was very much me being pushed by somebody else, which was my mother.
Oh, really?
Yeah, my mother had a huge influence on my life. I mean, there were times when I hated her for it. And I really just didn't want to do it. I thought, well, what the hell? Why can't I just be the normal kid that I am and you know, just sort of go to the park after school instead of having to get dressed up and put on a play somewhere. But then it kind of, I don't know. She kind of had hopes and nurtured something. I mean, against my will, like I said, a lot of the time. But now I'm very pleased about that because it's given me a lot of self-confidence, sort of, and being pushed that far, being dependent to so far, then finding independence at that level has been very good for me.
Why do you think she pushed you that hard?
Because I was her first son and because she loves me very much, and she also had a very boring life. She got married when she was 17, left school and got married just like that, and all the things that she wanted to do and was good at, she couldn't do anymore because she had to obviously look after her home, and my father wanted to be in plays and things like that. So she wanted me to do them instead of her. Sublimation, perhaps. But,
I see. Right.
But I'm pleased that it turned out that way. Yeah.
Sure did.
あのね、
これ最後かな。
もう2つ、現在のあなたはね、なかなかスター的素質があるエンターテイナーだと思うんですけれども、そのようなあなたの性格を決定づけたような昔のエピソードがあったら、もしよかったら教えてください。
Once again, this could overlap with what we were talking about, but he says you seem to have the real makings of like a big star. What?
Thank you.
What accounts for this? What do you think accounts for this? How do you analyze this?
Just enthusiasm, ambition.
Well, is there like one particular episode that stands out from your youth, perhaps?
God. Yeah. Always never getting the girl I wanted. Because she went out. She went for someone who was like good at sport or something, or always little things that kind of give you a little bug and a bee and a little irritations that make you think, my God, if I could only just, you know, be that much better at something, or do something on my own, do something which nobody else does. Then I'll get what I want. And it was really, I mean, people are lazy, especially in England. They're very lazy. They tend to want things the quickest and easiest way. I was slightly different in that I never had a chance to get things the easy way. I always had to work hard for what I wanted. And now, like I said, it's really paid off very well so far. I mean, I've got nice girlfriends now, lots of them.
Doubtless.
それじゃあね、ベースのジョン・テイラーっていう人はね、よく知らないんで全然わからないんだけれども、ちょっと見た感じとかね、それから感性的に近いものでジャパンのデビッド・シルビアンに似ているところがあるのではないかと思うんだけれども、あなたから見た彼の、パーソナリティはどんなものですか？
Another unfair question here. The bassist for the group, John Taylor.
I caught bits of it actually.
Pardon me?
I caught bits
Oh,
of
okay,
it.
there you go. Yeah,
Go on.
he tends to think this John Taylor resembles David Sylvian.
No, it's not John Taylor. It's Nick Rhodes.
The bass player?
No, not the bass player. No.
I mean, there's another member in the band that
This guy here.
He
He
was saying.
changed his hair dark because everybody called him, said he looked like David Sylvia. So that's that.
But he said in also in terms of sensibilities, perhaps.
Maybe.
Maybe. Well, how would you look?
No, I don't think so actually. I think I've got a lot of respect for David Sylvia. He's a very nice man, very
Yeah.
very decent, very
ベースのさ
honourable, very polite, well-mannered person. Very sensitive too. I
いや
mean,
ルックス
he's,
も含めて
and I could not have any more admiration for him than I have because I mean they've worked so hard as a band and had for such a long time, especially in England, had no fruit. You know,
素敵ですよ
they had nothing at all, and now
い
success
や
is
ルックスっ
coming
ていう
to
か
them.
さ感性が
It's a bit sad in a way because now they're having personal problems with the band, you know. But I think he's brilliant. I think he's got a brilliant mind. I love his idea of music, aesthetic music. It's very different from ours.
What about John Taylor, the man?
The man.
The man.
そう
He's my friend, you know.
He couldn't give us like a short outline of.
He's
あれだからルックスの話じゃなくて
いやもう言った感性でしょ。
he's all right. He's a nice guy. He's great.
Nice guy.
He's really nice. Yeah. He's different from me. You know. Great.
Like
So
in what ways?
he's very sensitive in what ways. I know what you mean actually about David Sylvian, but the person he's a little bit vulnerable.
Oh.
But he has 4 people looking after him. 4 very close friends. I mean, we're brothers. With a band, we're like that. So 5 of us. And when we work facing outwards, guarding each other's back. Team's great.
Team to the very end. That's it.
なんかどう思うのか
いやもう最後に尊敬してるんだって。
あ本当
デイビッド・シルバーなんて。
へー
うん。で彼らの